No, thank you very much. I'm not so sure what we should do, but surely we should discuss about not only the main title of our panel, vocation of career, but also I think to remember what we have learned during the last plenary meeting. Some different experience of politicians. They work in many different political parties, and they have commonly remarked, first of all, that politics is vocation, surely, not only a theoretical vocation. It's the same vocation that anyone has to change in line of the common good and according his proper inspiration, the life, and also on municipality level, religion, regional level, national level, and international level. That could be also career under some point of view, because it's natural that anyone could have some ambition to become, why not, Secretary General of his proper party, or to become a minister in his proper government. In my experience was, on one side, vocation. I was the first time 20 years ago in the Italian Parliament because of one of my teachers, professor at university, invited me to follow him in his political career. I became chair of my political parliamentary group in Italy in 1998 until a few months ago. In the last 3 years I was also chair of the APP group in the Council of Europe. What was very positive along this long career was that I never feel myself alone, but every time, for many also apparently casual opportunity, I was with a lot of NGO, a lot of friends that has worked with me, also in the European level. And that was very positive, because one of the problems of a politician is remain alone, to decide and to be submitted on many temptations. One of the temptations is to think themselves not to serve people, but to use people to serve his proper power. In Italy it's more easy to explain this concept, but it's very clear. If you want to serve people, you want to work with people and try to solve that problem according to the common good. If you want to use people, you could enlarge your consensus, also following pools, monthly pools or pools in the society, and use that consensus, use that new legislation or new rules to preserve your seat on one side, and also to increase your leadership among your party on your government. The last message that I want to give you to stimulate some discussion is that it's a proper duty to participate in the public life and also in the political life. Political life is not a part of the public life, is not one little box in the public square. Is a wonderful opportunity, positive opportunity, not only to contrast bad legislation or wrong lobbies, but also to propose, because we are happy to be Christian, to live in our Christian social teaching, and we want to present our reason as positive, the better solution to solve some structural problem of democracy nowadays. In fact, only to give you the last example, sometimes also many politicians, and unfortunately many NGO, also Catholic NGO, are too much working against some these very wrong lobbies on abortion, on demand, or gay marriage, or so on. I think that is the second part of our political action, because the first part is to present why we think that is more positive for the development of civil society and development of democracy to invest money, administration help, and also cultural improving on heterosexual, monogamic, open to life family. Why we think that this is the best way to improve democracy. The positive message should come, should be proposed every time, because we believe that is positive, should be proposed every time in the public square, also in the political life. And in fact, if you study a little the history of democracy from the modern democracy, from the founding fathers in the USA until now, the scientific data, sociological data, what we say, what we can do, we can say that where we have strong heterosexual family, monogamic and open to life, in that country, the social cohesion is a factor of development for all people, for all community, and for that country. So it's not only a theoretical approach that we can move when we enter in the political life. It's not only a naive actions, but we can find why we can find our positive argument and try to propose to the others with reason, not only by faith, and try to propose to the others because we are really convinced that this reason and these values are not only under Catholic doctrine very important, but are only also very important for the development of society. So if you look your possible desire to enter in the political sphere from this point of view, probably you could not lose your enthusiasm, but you can increase your enthusiasm and positive approach, and I hope you can decide to enter directly in the political life, especially today in this so difficult moment for many countries in Europe and also for Europe. Young people should be particularly involved in the political sphere, because young people has more virginal desire to change the world, are more tenacious, more generous, and we have not this enthusiastic approach in the political life in the European level. And so we need to understand that serve a charity association and poors is in the same time serve your friends in the political sphere, in your municipality, in your region, in your parliament, in European level. You could do the same with the same enthusiasm and to promote the same important values. Please, Christoph.
Thank you, Luca. Well, when I was invited to
to talk to you about politics as vocation or career. I thought that I'm maybe not absolutely the right man in the right place, because I used to be a little bit in politics in the past, but now I'm mainly what I always call a bankster, because as you all learn from the media, bankers are responsible for everything evil that is happening in this world right now. So obviously I'm a criminal, so I can call myself a bankster at the first place. But then I'm also lecturing about Catholic social teaching quite a bit all around the globe, so I might add something. And if it comes to vocation, I found this sentence by Pope Paul VI in his encyclical Letter Populorum Progressio, where he said that in the design of God, every man is called upon to develop and fulfill himself, for every life is a vocation. So whatever we are doing, we need to ask ourselves whether that really is our vocation. I'm a bankster. Is it my vocation to rob all of you of your possessions or not? I think it pretty much is. But then he goes on saying something which is already, I would say, very provocative for the upcoming discussion. He talks about progress. And especially in politics nowadays, the term progress is something we do not like to talk about a lot, because many people are telling us we should rather be satisfied with what we have. But if you listen carefully yesterday to the lecture of Archbishop Leonard, he was quite clear on that our vocation is to progress, always to long for more, to develop, to grow. And it is already Pope Paul VI who said that our vocation to progress drives us to do more, to know more, and to have more in order to be more. So whoever tells you, just be satisfied with what you have, just don't develop, don't do anything, because it's one of the options also in liberation theology, for example, rather to be happy with what you have, not to strive for progress. Catholic social teaching actually teaches absolutely the opposite. I was also a little bit skeptical during the last panel we had. There was also a little bit of a notion, if you listened correctly to one of the speakers, where he said we should rather not strive for achieving more and always growing. We can talk about that in the discussion. I think what we need to do in order to understand our real vocation for each one of us, and especially for a politician, because I would say if you do politics right, it's a rather complicated business, because you really need to understand, like one of my teachers, a man that I absolutely adored, and I worked for him for some time, was Otto von Habsburg. He was member of the European Parliament. You might know him. He once said, if you do not know where you're coming from, then obviously you do not understand where you're standing right now, and it's absolutely impossible for you to know where you're heading to. So I guess we need to understand the very basis of where we are coming from, and even more basically, who we are. So who are we? Who is the human person? And the Church teaches us that we are created in the image and likeness of God. We say that very easily, but most of us do not really understand what that means, I would assume. So how is God? Who is God? First of all, he is absolutely free. He is the absolute free being. He's totally unlimited. He is the Alpha and the Omega. So if we are created in his image, we should also be free. We should also exercise our freedom. We are also created as free beings. But he's not 100% free, strange enough, because he has set into his creation a certain set of rules, of regulations, which we call natural law. And he limits himself. He limits himself to these rules and regulations. Why? Why is he so reliable? Why can we totally rely upon God? Why is he consistent with his own laws and promises? That's what Jesus says, because he is the way, the truth, and the life. So there is the word truth. He's absolutely true. And if God is totally true, then we also need to strive for truth. And Pope Leo XIII, you know, this was the first pope who ever wrote the social encyclical, said that we have the severe moral obligation to long for the truth and always uphold it in order to use our freedom properly. So freedom and truth. The third thing, God is community. And he needs to be community because we also say he is pure love. And now think about if he would not be community, if he would just be one person, that's it. And he would be total love, self-sustainable love. He would only love himself. All psychologists would tell you that a person that only loves himself has a certain mental problem. It's called narcissism or even worse. So God cannot have a mental problem. God needs, in order to be love, he needs to be community. So what is the community of God? By the way, we human beings are called to love each other. It's another part of our vocation. Because if God is love, we also should love. As he loves us, we should love him and love our neighbors. If he is community, what is this community? It's the Father and the Son. And the Father loves the Son, and the Son loves the Father so much that this love becomes the third person of the Holy Trinity. As we say in the large creed, the Holy Spirit that derives from the Father and the Son. And where do we human beings come closest to the Holy Trinity? In marriage. When a man and a woman love each other so much that their love becomes an individual person, the child. There is the point where we come closest to the Holy Trinity. And God is creative. He is the creator. So also we should be creative. There we go back to progress. We should always strive to do more, to have more, to long for more, to know more. We should be creative. So this is a little bit in a nutshell what we are as human beings, because God is as he is and we are created in his image and likeness. I want to tell you one sentence that it's a tough sentence actually, and I said that to a couple of people sitting with me at the table for lunch. And I think this could also stir up discussion. John Paul II once said that if we would all live in a world, imagine a world where every human being would do good, only good, would be a perfect world, wouldn't it? Everyone is just doing good, but not because he or she deliberately decides to do good, but because he's forced to do good. Such a world would be much closer to hell than to heaven. Think about that. This is, if we're talking about politics nowadays, that are always telling us we need to do this, we need to come up with this regulation, with this rule, with this new taxation and redistribution, etc., because we want to bring about a certain good state of the world. That's dangerous, very dangerous. Pope Benedict XVI in his encyclical Spe Salvi is even more concrete on that, when he says, if there were structures which could irrevocably guarantee a determined good state of the world, then man's freedom would be denied, and hence they would not be good structures at all. And that's tough. We really need to think about that. He goes on saying, human affairs depend in each generation on the free decisions of those concerned. And if this freedom were to be taken away as a result of certain conditions or structures, then ultimately this world would not be good, since a world without freedom can by no means be a good world. So freedom, I would say we should really protect the freedom of the individual. Not the freedom from everything, but the freedom to follow our vocation, to fulfill ourselves. These were just a couple of things. I mean, we can now talk about if we just kind of put in front of us the mirror of what I've just said, following the truth, freedom, being creative, our vocation to progress. Let us just ask ourselves whether, in the light of our heavily indebted welfare states, our close to confiscatory tax regimes, our always and ever growing regulations, whether we have not already crossed the line into a world that is a lot closer to hell than to heaven. If we are talking about the demographic disaster we are living in, especially in the so-called old world, America is a little bit better. But here in the old world, and especially dramatic it's in Russia, we could ask ourselves, why is that? Why are we not having enough children anymore? There could be one truth behind it, that exactly the gap to the self-sustainability level, which is about 2.1 children per woman, the gap is the children that we are aborting every year. No one is talking about that. I'm not making any moral argument here. I'm an economist. I'm a Catholic. I'm a member of a Catholic order. But I'm only talking about a mathematical argument here. We are dying out because, mathematically true, we are aborting exactly the gap for the self-sustainability. If we're talking about gender ideology, is that true? We are learning we are not men or women anymore. We can decide what we want to be. Today I'm a man, tomorrow I'm a woman, the day after tomorrow I'm something in between. I'm not sure. This is a brutal attack against the family, and again supports our demographic disaster. We could go on talking at length about the GDP growth story that we've heard today, and I partially would subscribe to that. There are so many topics that we could talk about, but always we need to see it in front of the mirror of individual freedom, of truth, of creativity. Private property, one of the major cornerstones of Catholic social teaching. We should protect private property. Private property is one of the fundaments of our individual freedom because it extends our freedom to act. But if I have to pay more than 50% in some countries, in Austria, if you make a true calculation, then you're paying up to 70, 72, 73% of the money that your employer pays to you each month, you're paying directly or indirectly back to the government. And from there, it's redistributed. This is a confiscatory system. Absolutely, it's close to communism, I would say. We could also talk about that. So I leave the floor now to the discussion. I tried to be a bit provocative. I tried to throw in a couple of thoughts. And now I think we're going to discuss it, or? Anyone has any comment on that? I was not provocative enough. I can give you some more food for thought if you want.
Can tell some. Well, I think about vocation or career. Clearly, it's.
Can you present yourself?
Yes, I am Jean-Paul Pinon. I am a founder of a new movement which is called We Citizens in Belgium. So in this behalf, We Citizens. And maybe so. This movement is more close to political vocation than career. So it's an alternative to creating parties, to create some civil association, civil society organizations, like they say in the European Commission. So. Well, that's first point. I would just remind that we can be active in a political world, being an actor, so a politician, or being a responsible citizen, which is obliging in a certain way the politicians to behave in a responsible way. And I think there is always a need to have a counterpower. Mainly, I would say in Belgium, where you have a very strong particracy, but I think we are not the monopolists of that type of. That's one point. I would say because this is also so. Our association is. An association of electors and voters, so, and of taxpayers. So we have also, but at the same time, we would not be able to perform our action if we were not neutral and pluralist and so on. So it's difficult. You could say it's difficult for a taxpayers association to be neutral. Well, there is there are two activities for taxpayers associations. If you look at what's happening in different countries, you have militant taxpayers associations which will want to reduce the level of taxation, whatever the means. And you have another approach, which is just looking at public management and demanding excellence in the public management. So a good management. So this, if this happens, of course, you will perform the same services with less money. And so less taxes. And that's the approach we have in We Citizens. So we think that such an approach is neutral. We do not say whether the current level of taxation is too high or too low. We just say we want that our money is used in a proper way. And so that's maybe. In a certain way, an answer to is it confiscatory taxes? You can, well, people may think it, but as an association, you can stay neutral, and maybe you reach in a better way the outcome, because you want, if money is well managed, you will have good maybe the outcome you want.
Personally, I don't think you can be neutral on this topic, because if you say, actually, I don't care whether eventually the state even takes 100% of my money, as long as they manage it properly. It's a moral question. It's a moral question because it totally takes away your individual liberty. Absolutely. So I would say the less taxes you pay, the better, because the more individual liberty you have. Yes, there are certain services that might eventually not be provided by civil society or neighborhoods or whatever, or that you can't do on your own. And we can discuss about that. And I like this part of what you said, that you're thinking about what is the duty of the state. What kind of services should the government provide? I think it should not even provide 20% of what it's doing right now. It's doing way too much. It grabbed everything it could get. in the last 30, 40, 50 years. And that's why we have to pay so much in taxes. There are studies done by different institutes all around the globe that every tax dollar or euro that you're paying into this system, that is then working its way through the system and coming out again at another level, being redistributed wherever, is losing at least 50% of its purchasing power. So if you say you're in a country where you have 50% taxation, most of our European countries are beyond that, but let's say 50%, then you can make a very simple calculation that your GDP, and that means the wealth created within a society, could be 25% higher than it is right now. That would mean a lot more jobs, a lot more wealth creation within this society than it is right now. Again, a moral question. This redistribution is a moral question. It is limiting individual freedom, and it's limiting the potential to progress within the society.
I'm not sure I'm in the topic, but I does it work? Yeah. You hear me? Okay. I don't understand. It's only for the translation. Okay. Well, I believe it's a moral question, taxes, and even more than we believe, because maybe what is done with my taxes or with my social security is deeply against my own convictions. I mean, maybe as the question in the US and earlier in Bayern about what is done with social security. Is it to pay abortions, which I don't agree with, and such things. So taxes are also social security, not really taxes, however, is even if the taxes are high, it's deeply moral. And I believe in a pluralistic society, indeed, there should be less taxes, and maybe people could create small communities where they pay voluntary taxes as parishes. In the US, people pay, I don't know, 10% of their salaries to their parish, and their parish is also their sport club. So they are smaller communities which you choose, and so you have that community you choose normally does something you agree with, and so everybody can choose what it wants. So I believe in a non-pluralistic society, it's possible that there are no ethical questions for taxes, as in the Guarani republics. There was communists with the Jesuits, with the Indians, and there was everybody was happy, but everybody was educated to Catholicism, so there were no problems. But if we are in a pluralistic society, people don't agree with other people. Some friends of mine wanted, or still wants, to make movies, to make a movie in Belgium. You cannot do that because you don't have the money. You don't receive the money from the people, because people say, we pay taxes. So you must have money from the Walloon region or from the French community of Belgium. So you need to have the conviction, the same beliefs as the power, the same unreligious belief, to get the money to make your movie. You can find, so there is no freedom even for culture if there is a monopoly of taxes. So I'm not really against taxes, but I'm against states' monopoly of taxes. You know.
Is the general rule that we first introduce ourselves before we start speaking? My name is Markus Wintersteller. I was born and raised in Austria. But I work here in the European Commission, DG ECFIN, so Economic and Financial Affairs. And I want to correct a few figures. And I didn't know that this was a tax workshop, but I just wanted to state a few truths. Starting on that side, about what you said about the USA, I mean, of course it would be nice if everyone had the choice, I want to pay tax for this, and then we do that, and we do this, and we do this on a parish level. But there's also some economies of scale you have to bear in mind. And for example, there was a very good comparison between the Danish and the US health system. And the Danish system costs 7% of GDP, whereas the US costs 15%, and it's way less efficient because they have a plethora of different private insurances, and once you get into a hospital, in Denmark you have your carte de santé, just like here, and everything is stocked on this card. In the US it starts filling in your appliances. So this brings us back to the question: is what are the actions a state should take, and what should leave aside? And here I'm actually not at all agreeing with your comparison. The less taxes you pay, the freer the person is, because you just have to look at Latin America. There are many countries where the tax take is in the single digits. Are people free there? Not at all. There is rampant criminality, there is corruption all over the place, and in the end you're free to stay at home at night because the place is just too dangerous to go out. And the same applies to certain places of the USA. Whereas in Europe, where we have a basic assurance of basic social needs, the level of criminality is way less. You can take any European state you want to take. I would say the perceived level of criminality is less on this side of the Atlantic than in any country west of the Atlantic, which with a lower tax take. Which brings me back to my last question: is actually what kind of tax we would like to have. You said that in Austria, 73% of the money that an employee earns goes back to the employer. If that was really true, no one would work in Austria anymore. There's something which is called the Laffer curve, which basically goes up like this and states that the higher the tax take is, the higher the aggregate amount the state is going to take will be, but somewhere around 44%, there is a turning point. That means if you go from 44 to 45, the total revenue will actually decrease. And actually many countries in Europe are around this place in an alpha curve, so they maximize their revenue. And so I wanted to finish actually on one basic question, which is actually quite prevalent in the Swedish system, and it actually comes back to what you said, is in Sweden, for any kind of problem might turn up, they ask one basic question: do we leave the liberty to everyone else and let everyone just try and see how he gets along and have several different solutions, or do we have one centralized solution and it might be cheap in the end? And this is how the Swedish social system works, and it works out quite well according to me.
My question is, in a country as Austria or Sweden, I don't know, can I build an hospital with Catholic values, refusing states' monopoly of values? Can I build a Catholic hospital which respects Catholic values, so refuses unethical behavior as according to Catholic faith? That's
impossible to become a gynecologist if you are openly
okay. In Belgium, it's also impossible because a student, even if theoretically it's possible, but a Catholic student will never succeed if he refuses to practice abortion or will not be employed. So my question is, it's very nice a system as Sweden or Austria or maybe worst, Belgium. However, you don't have the freedom to match with your values. And according to me, if we are in a pluralistic society, I prefer consistency, coherency. So let it be a pluralistic system of taxes, which a minimum of a common core of taxes for necessary things for everybody, and everybody pays his taxes to something that matches his own beliefs.
Maybe to move from, I think there is an important question which we have spoken about from tax point of view, but I can switch to another. So I will start maybe from another observation. In Belgium we have had, I think it was 2 years ago, the whole parliament voting a resolution to condemn the words of the Pope, so that and no one single party voted against this resolution condemning Pope Benedict. Yes. No. It was about condoms, I think. Yes.
Resolution on condom against Benedict XVI.
Yes.
In the parliament.
Yes.
Against the words of Benedict.
Yes. Condemning the words
Even the visit
in Uganda, when he traveled to Uganda. So this is showing. So this.
kind of vocation of politics.
Yes, but it's showing that at least in Belgium we have still some Christians. So you could expect, that a few maybe, but a few deputies would have voted against the law. Well, no one single deputy. So I think there is a problem of good representation of the population in the parliament. And you could add another problem of functioning of the parliament also in the particracy. But going to the first problem, this representation, this is the reason why we started such an association. So I am now going to one possible solution, which the one I propose, but just to put the discussion into discussion. Since 20 years, I feel there is no one single party which is really representing my views. So I feel the necessity to vote for persons, because you have more choice among persons, but still you have to find them. And another thing is this person must gain sufficient freedom to do what they want. But at least if you already start finding them and giving them more weight with your preferential votes, you hope that in the long run they will they will have an influence in the course of politics, in the course of the party's orientation. And what I felt is a big frustration at each election, because I had no instrument to find these individuals. Sometimes I knew one or two and so, but it was not in my district, in my constituency and so on. I think, we have a real gap in some countries like Belgium. We lack such an instrument to find the individuals. So that's the program of We Citizens. But I hope there will be such things in other countries.
Could you just explain how you will do it?
Yes. We are just using a system which is already in use in Switzerland, for instance, smart votes. So you take a questionnaire which is establishing a political profile of the person. You send the questionnaire to all the candidates, you record, you store it in your system, and then the same questionnaire is put to offered to the voters on internet. And when the voter has answered the questionnaire, the computer calculates the matching between your answers and the answer of each candidate. And then the computer gives a score to each candidate and sends you the list of the candidates in your ranking.
So do you have a check with what people effectively voted?
That's an additional feature of the association. So the association has just started, so we cannot yet offer this, but of course it's the purpose, if you have resources enough, if to check their promises, electoral promises, yes. And of course, if they do not comply with their promises, then to have articles putting this in, putting transparency.
Thank you. So, Michel, so I'm a Frenchman living as an expatriate in Belgium, working for a private company. I find it very interesting what you say about this experience, because we were asked more or less to commit ourselves into politics, and I think it's a powerful way to do things and to move things forward. That's clear. And I think the reason why maybe Christian commitment so far has not been that high and representative, for instance, in Europe compared to the US, in a way, is also that maybe politics have a bad reputation, I would say, and because I'm interested in the field, for instance, and when you talk about it, basically it's really perceived to have a huge strain on personal life, and also that it's so controversial, and I would say people are fighting and a bit arguing at each other. Maybe it's in France, in other countries, I suppose it's a bit the same, that, okay, how can you keep moral, ethical, and keep, I would say, a rather fair way of living your life when you are in this trade or in this business? I suppose it's possible, because I think the reputation of politicians is worse than what they actually do. But I suppose it's still difficult. So I would like to have some feedback on your experience for who has been actually in it, to see, okay, how can you manage that while living a normal and Christian life, let's say. So, I don't know.
Only a few words to react. First of all, about the importance of civil society movement. One of the first president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, used to say sometime that democracy could reduce his proper power when society when civil society reduce their proper creativity, community, sense of community. So there is a real link that was said also under not only economic point of view by Christoph, between the freedom of person, freedom of community, and the wellness of democracy. And we see what's happened in Europe. When the civil societies close their voices, the state became more or less naturally super state or superpower state, and also the political parties became more and more far from the citizens, introduced some difficulties to become a member of the party, or new electoral legislation in which is more or less theoretically possible but practically impossible to become a member of the parliament. And so this gap is increasing. But the first cause, the first reason because that's happened is not only because the political men or the politicians are becoming completely wrong. It's also because the civil society people that create movement to introduce new argument in the debate, or to support some values, or to stimulate more freedom under taxation point of view, or under freedom of NGO or community, also real application of principle of subsidiarity, don't decide to do that proper rule. So it's very important to be active not only in the political, particular sphere, but also in the political life, in the public square. And you could have different approach, different action, but give your particular contribute to develop your democracy in your country. Freedom, it's really the first question, especially now in Europe. If you think something about the possible new directive for European Union, so-called anti-discrimination, fortunately not already approved, in which is so clear that some gender approach are introduced, and so your freedom to promote, not show you that you are against gay marriage, but promote heterosexual marriage could be sometimes considered offensive in many countries of European Union, because many people could feel themselves offended. And so, through the hate speech or anti-homophobic legislation, you could be submitted by a judgment that that show you through this real exemplary case that the question of freedom is not completely finished in Europe. And this crucial question for democracy became every time more and more important. We talked a few minutes ago about this real barrier for many people to become a doctor or a gynecologist or a teacher, why not? Or a father and mother. In some European system, it's very important. It's really impossible if you are father and mother and your daughters or your son are in the school and they are more or less obliged to learn hypersexualization, not education, sexual education, but hypersexualization of their bodies. You cannot decide to take away, your children at school. So freedom of education is present in Europe. This is only a few cases to show you that some crucial questions that already was mentioned by Frederick are not only, it's impossible that are only appointed on a question of fiscal question or taxation, are unfortunately present in every single aspect of this democracies and European level situation. But my question is, that's very good, to very positive and very enthusiastic approach to found new movement, to fight in the social and public square, but you need also not only to watch what's happened, look what's happened, but enter. So by courage, your personal courage, enter in the political life, in the not only public square, but also in the political life, request firmly that this possibility to enter, to be active in the true election in the parliament could be very possible, could be possible, and also could be easy, without any barrier, internal barrier, because the first, one of the most important questions is that many people consider the politicals are the same as the bankers, the worst seen in the world in this time, but no one of these people decide to enter and try to change their opinion, also working on some question. So we need your leadership.
Thank you. First of all, I want to present myself. Félix de Merode, and I'm a school director, so about freedom in education. It's a huge topic. I was always wondering how to get in politics or involved in politics, because it's we would, I think, all love to do some politics, but you already know. Maybe in my case, at least, it's very difficult to be able to change something on the big scale, because as we saw, if it's taxation issue, health issues, or education issue, we are in a society which is going towards totalitarianism, and because it's a philosophical problem at the end, it's based on a system of Hegel, and a society where the state is not anymore an organ, like Aristotle would say, which is an organ to serve the entireness of the body. It became a superpower state. So it's the same thing which happened, I think, before Second World War, but in other ways. And so I think the tendency to totalitarianism is always there. in any human structure, as you really said by Benedict XVI in his encyclical. So it's a human tendency. So the problem of politics is always how to resolve very deep and profound philosophical and anthropological issues. If people just don't have maybe the time or the will to reflect of those things, and because it's a view of God, the world, the human being, which the politicians have to change to be able to put laws again which defend human nature. So we're back again on the question of truth. What is the real truth? What is human nature? So it's always, so that's why I choose education to do politics, because it's so difficult. But if you take children since a young age and you can still educate them and not impose them your vision, but lead them to freedom again, which is very important, and then risk the freedom, because it's a risk. If you let them free, they might not follow what you teach them. But if you teach them, I think, beauty and truth and community and values, well, they will flourish. So for me, I think politics is top of an iceberg. We need people to get engaged in politics, but it's more than politics. It's much deeper than politics. And again, 60 years ago, we had brilliant Catholic politicians like Schumann, like Adenauer in Germany, and etc. And I think in Italy, you had this great philosopher called Gramsci, who wrote or said at that time, let the economics and the politics to the right. We take culture and education. And we would run the world in a few years. And you can see how in 60 years all the Christian parties have like fell down. Maybe the only one still is a German one, but is it really Catholic or Christian? That's another question. But so cultural and education is for a long politic activity. And so I think we have to also think of how to get back in culture, how to get back in those things and educate people. So, well, thank you. I don't know. So I didn't, it's not a debate which I...
Now while you rebuild a Christian culture, the politicians have a minimum duty, the Christian politicians, have a minimum duty to preserve freedom of education. So what we need, an example, in many countries in Europe, some politicians, also young politicians, armed by faith and courage, that wake up during the debate in the parliament, also alone sometimes, and try to defend the simple human right of freedom of education. Not only defend the Catholic Church or the Catholic education or the long-term strategy to rebuild the Christian community and the Christian culture, because his proper duty in that time in the parliament is not to prepare a long-term discussion, is to show that he is not only convinced according on their proper faith, but he wants also in the same time preserve some basic human rights that are completely destroyed by this new statalistic approach that want only also decide and create the new humanity, probably to manipulate or to put some condition on the new citizens. But if we have not politicians that try to defend your work, not because it's yours, but because it's part of freedom of education, that could be more or less impossible to restore a sort of natural law. Yeah.
Just to make a link with the title of this session, I feel it like this also in the work of anybody. Anybody is working somewhere, and in the politics also, you want to be in. And I believe that's the problem, vocation or career. Maybe someone gets in the politics with ideals. I want to defend the weak. I want to protect the truth. But you want to be in. You want your career. You want your advantage also at work. So you accept slowly small compromises. Okay, I will shut up. I will just don't say what I think. And you have the human psychological reflex to justify yourself. Yes, however, that was a good idea not to tell the truth on this point. And you want to be in that parliamentarian groups. I see some friends, and I believe they are moving that way, just to be in the in group. And also the media will say, oh, you believe like that, so you are in Belgium they will say, you are with that bad Leonard. And it's the way to put you in the out group. If you have the same opinion as this bad guy, I don't believe it's a bad guy, they put you out. And so because you want to be in, because you want your career, you compromise a little bit, but compromising psychologically changes you, can change you. This is? You talk about your personal experience. Not my personal experience, but I believe I see it works like that. Maybe not all the time, but I believe I know people that have been in the politics, and either they are disgusted and they get out, either they stay but they compromise.
Your practical life is the same as politician or functionary in the Commission, Council of Europe, bankers. You have this tentation. It's not only the question of politicians. Yeah, but the question is not that you could preserve yourself about a temptation of the world. The perfect world is the perfect jail, prison. No? And so the question is that, first of all, you should be so convinced that you are happy because you believe in some values, that you have not any dramatic situation to show to the other member of your party that you believe. You should be sometime in the majority, or some other people that have not your same courage could join with you and show in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 years that you are majority.
I agree.
Yeah. That's because if you every time decide that, yeah, but I want to fight this battle, but in the same time, if I became Secretary General of my party, it's better that from the beginning I try another way, or come out the room when it's necessary my vote. You can defend also Christian teaching or the teaching of gender. You are not the coherent person, and so it's not a question of your inspiration. It's a question of your that you think not only in the positive sense career. It's not only your ambition to increase your status. Became power for you. Became the real God. The real God is not what you believe. So God and the Christian teaching. The real God became the power. So that could happen for politicians, for bankers, for simple employed. So this is the reason, because if you have also this friend, only when we start in the Council of Europe fighting some battles, we are more or less 20 people on more than 400. And we finish after 3 years that we have joined it more than the vast majority of the Council of Europe parliamentary member. Why? For many reasons, but one of the reasons was that we have the courage to fight also alone, to show that, yeah, it's possible.
I have a question. I have the feeling that this courage comes from Eastern Europe. Please.
No, depend. That's depend.
I have the feeling I have the feeling that this courage, I know you're from Italy, but you look like a Western exception, comes from Eastern European countries. They have the courage to go against Western values or anything.
In the international level, depend of the person, depend not from one nation you was born. The person, really from the person. You have some countries, an example, Hungarian constitutional reform or the new legislation from Russia against this propaganda, gay propaganda in school, that could show you that some government, two Eastern government in this time, are totally against some new idea in Europe. But the courage depends on how much you believe is true, what you say, what you think.
But I tend to have sympathies for what you say. In my job, I was responsible for the whole Eastern European, including Russian market, for the last 15 years, and I tend to feel that you are right to a certain extent. But why is it? Because in the Eastern European countries, the former communist countries, the people have seen already the very ugly face of totalitarianism, government totalitarianism. Here in the West, we see the mild phase, we see the smiling phase of government totalitarianism, and we only realize it if, like a friend of mine who just founded a school, a private school in Austria, and he is now facing all the problems that come along with doing something like that. I think the main problem for me in politics is that we have too much political intervention in our societies, in our private lives. I've just recently heard a tremendously interesting lecture by a British economist about how was social security organized before, in the late 19th or beginning of the 20th century, the so-called modern welfare state was invented. And it was organized by so-called friendly societies. Friendly societies where you paid in a certain percentage of your earnings, and the society as such cared for your pensions, cared for your medical treatment, cared if you had to be defended in front of a court trial, it cared for your children if you had to go to work, etc., etc. It was way cheaper, the system, than it is now, way cheaper. It was a civil society achievement. And you know why there are still some, very limited, some remains of these civil society organizations, these friendly societies. But you know why most of them are wiped out? Because when the government steps in, you automatically have a crowding out effect, and all these private initiatives. That's why in many European countries, slowly but steadily, private schools are dying, private universities are dying. This is exactly because the government steps in and says, we care for that. We do it with tax money. We rob people. I always say rob because for me this is robbing people. We rob people, we rip them off their belongings, and then we redistribute them, and we start a university with millions and millions and millions there, and so on and so forth. Most of the time it's totally inefficient. Most of the time the private institutions would be better. But anyways, they're wiped out. And you can see that, especially, to give one last example, on the medical sphere, because you mentioned that my brother-in-law is a medical doctor in Austria. He is most probably the most famous medical scientist in Austria. He's on all the local, national and international bodies for medical treatment, for drug release, for blah, 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 you name it. He's vice dean of the medical university in Vienna. And he says that if you compare the United States with their private-based system and our system, they are about 15 to 20 years ahead if it comes to medical research than the average European medical standard. And I have a lot of friends who have a lot of money and who had some serious health problems, and you know where they went in order to get their proper cancer treatment, etc. They were all flying to the United States, to the best clinics, and there they got the best treatment. They would not rely on any European. There is something in Switzerland which is not bad, yes, but most of the other countries in Europe, forget it. So, I mean, we really need, I think the major theme for a Catholic, according to Catholic social teaching, should be to push back political influence in Europe, to push back the welfare state, to reduce tremendously the redistribution. It's a moral question. The redistribution by collecting tax revenues. And on top of it, Arthur B. Laffer, you mentioned the Laffer curve, said that the turning point is not 43%, but it's 15%. And we have, I met Arthur B. Laffer when I worked in the States. And we have an example of that in Russia. Russia in 2001 changed the tax code in the middle of 2001, in August, I guess, and they brought down the tax rate from 65% to 13%. It's still there today, 13%. And you know what? In 2001, the tax revenue for the government tripled. So from 65 to 13%. Laffer works. They are even below the turning point with 13% now. So I think... Yeah, but that has nothing to do... Yeah, but that is a debt... No, that's a debt repayment. That's not... Well, now you... Yeah, but this is not connected. This is the debt repayment is a different story than the tax collection, the tax revenue on the other side. The tax revenue is just what you collect from the people. So I just say that the system works and we need to push back government intervention. And then it would also make our life as Catholics a lot easier, because if I pay less taxes, I have more money to send my people to private schools, for example, to private hospitals with the best possible doctors, to private universities, to go abroad, to do whatever. Milton Friedman, the Nobel laureate, introduced a system, a voucher system. When you want to send your children to a private school, then the government needs to give you a voucher, which would be the equivalent what the government would pay if you would send it to a public school. And you can check in the voucher at the private school, and if the private school asks you more than that, then you have to pay on top of it. But what happens now, at least in Austria, I guess it's the same in Germany, in France, in Belgium, wherever, you don't get a voucher, you pay double and triple. First you pay the taxes to support the government system, and then you pay additional the tuition for your children in the private schools. So you pay double and triple, and this is again the crowding out effect. This is why all these private institutions sooner or later will be wiped out of the market.
I would like to raise maybe again a more personal and practical question. Is that at one point you mentioned that you were talking with a lot of your friends and that a lot of them were disgusted after experience in politics. So I would like more to have a kind of personal advice, let's say. How do you manage not to be disgusted to be in politics?
You cannot avoid to be disgusted because politics is more or less some other profession could have very difficult moment. But for me it was very important, I said from the beginning, not only believe that, and was so happy that the social Christian social teaching or the letter and doctrinal letter of Benedict was true, not only under the faith point of view, but also totally according the human values, so very reasonable to present these values in the parliament. And was very useful for me to maintain, also increase my friendship with many NGO and civil society protagonists. Also, your family and your community where you live is very important to restore your enthusiasm. And surely, it's not the rule, it's only one experience. But if you have faith on one side, and was said also today, remember us, pray and act. Pray and act with also other people, also without sometime outside the parliament, you could find the necessary enthusiasm and necessary audacity, necessary courage to fight and to find, using creativity that God has done to you, use the creativity to, on one side, using well and sometimes better than the other, the formal instrument, the rules of the parliament, the rules of the party, finding the best way to affirm your reason. On the other way, in the other side, find the step by step, the necessary majority, sometimes it's possible, to preserve that what the simple values, the simple rules that now are openly or informally violated by this new approach of superpower from the state. It's possible, it's necessary, it's urgent.
Thank you. So, Luca, I am Olivier Terlinden, consultant in environment and energy. And if you had now 1, 2, maybe 3 concrete key advices to give to young people who think about entering in politics, what would be those advice?
First of all, the answer is in your hands. If you want to change the world, one of the best ways to change the world is entering politics. I continue to be very enthusiastic because I believe that it's possible to change the world, not alone, really. But anyone could introduce his proper curiosity, his proper creativity to change in a better way this world. Especially for young people, they are so clearly enthusiastic to change the world. This is the main reason to enter into politics. Second, not only pray a lot our God, but also prepare a lot yourself on practical consequences of social Christian social teaching, because on one side it's very important to learn. It was shown very well by Christoph, encyclical, but also Christoph showed us that you should learn encyclicals and Christian social teaching, and also apply in the concrete way. Sometimes it's very easy for politicians, it's very easy to learn what the Pope, many popes, but also the doctrinal note of Joseph Ratzinger was written in 2002. Duties and opportunity, risk, not only by ethical point of view, but also economical point of view in nowadays. And I think that more or less we are in the same situation. So you know more clearly what is necessary, but you should also prepare yourself, because during the debate is not only necessary reaffirm one position, but find also the way, the intelligent way, the creative way to collect many reasons you can, under different point of view, to support your opinion. And the third is to increase your friendship with your friend and maintain your open door to civil society organization, because it's possible, as sometimes happen, that you are alone or you feel alone. That was also for me sometimes. And if you have many friends around you that support you or could be very easy to continue your battle your way.
I would add one point, and I hope that's not destroying something what you said, but I would definitely add, do not go into politics straight after school or after university. Go into economy, go work for business, work as a lawyer, do something outside of politics. And then with this expertise, after some time, get back into politics. Because I think our political life needs the expertise from outside of political life, the view from outside. And then you will be a tremendously solid politician, I would say.
My name is Agnieszka Szklanna. I'm Polish and I'm a civil servant in the Council of Europe. For the last 10 years, I've been working mainly on human rights issues. And I would like to make a reflection concerning human rights and some ideas which are now promoted, like the gender policy or same-sex marriages or the right to abortion, which are more and more perceived also as human rights. And I have the impression that this happens in a kind of undemocratic way, being imposed often by some lobbyists or some civil servants in international organizations. And I wonder what could be done more at the political level, either at national level or at the European level, in order to promote Christian values by Christian politicians.
No, briefly, I think that we have, first of all, to become cautious about these challenges, because I'm strongly convinced that these challenges implied totalitarianistic ideology, especially gender. If you, not only under theoretical point of view or philosophical point of view, but if you look the experience, an example in the Zapatero era in Spain, or what is happening in France, you look that it's not only one single point, but around this single point there is a horizon, total horizon, from the children, free age, hold, to the end of the life. And they are so clear because they say we should intervene in every personal level or your private life. So that is clear. So take these cautions is very important, because this is the first step to understand where we are. In the same time, it's very important to use all the arguments that we have under philosophical point of view, under political science point of view, democracy doctrine point of view, human right point of view. So we have many, many arguments, rational arguments, statistical arguments, sociological and economic arguments, but we should use these arguments to present our values that are in the same time, until now, in all international declaration or convention, the only one values approved. We should use all these arguments to support our idea and our proposals. If we reduce ourselves or put ourselves under psychological corner or in the corner and we are showing also only the Catholic teaching, that is not bad. But in the public square could be also an opportunity for the other to ask to us to shut up. So we use good argument under theoretical point of view, but very wrong to increase the consensus and also put in this difficulty this promoter of these ideologies.
Just very briefly, and then I think we have to leave it anyways here because. But I would. We continue in the other room. Again, we can all come with us. No, but the point what I would like to mention, I think this is one of the major problems in politics today. You mentioned two major topics. I have very simple solution to both of them. Hard to implement, but simple solution. Abortion, very easy. Abortion means killing of a human being. Very simple. We do not dare to say that anymore. In the whole public discourse, we do not say that. If you say that, you will have rotten eggs be thrown at you, etc., but you will immediately win every discussion, every argument. You will immediately win it. You don't have to go through all the other topics because you can always say to your neighbor, are you pro or against killing a human person? And if he says, well, I'm totally against killing a human person, you say, but the baby is a human person. But what is with the right of the woman to her body? Oh, she has every right. She can cut off her breasts. She can have lips like a monster. She can do whatever she wants. But here, she's limiting the rights of her baby. She's killing the baby in her womb. And there, she limits the rights of the baby to live. Full stop. She's killing the baby. Huh? So the government, in every international declaration, protect the life and the integrity of the life of every human person. Second, gender ideology. This has nothing to do with politics from my point of view. Politics should not be concerned with that at all. If I'm a Catholic politician, I would just go out and say, what the heck are you talking about? I'm a man. At least this morning when I was showering, I still was. I'm quite convinced. Yeah? And someone else is a woman. And if you want to say you're something in between, you can say whatever you want. I don't care. But don't force me by law to write that in my diploma thesis or to have government documents issued in a strange way or this or that. Or don't spend tons of money, millions and millions of taxpayers' money again for idiotic research in this direction because this gender ideology has nothing to do with politics. This is only about my individual freedom, full stop. So get politics out of all these strange spheres where it entered during the last 20, 30, 40 years. We need to push it back and say, here is your place, care for the real needy, but don't care for the other rubbish.
Coffee.